How many of you have ever experienced the silent treatment? Or you have had a communication with somebody where you've been asking them what was wrong and they've been telling you nothing is wrong, everything's fine, but you know that everything is not fine. Even though their words may be saying one thing, their actions, their face, their body language is communicating something contrary to what their words are saying. We've all experienced this. In fact, most of us have been the person who has been communicating one thing with our mouth and another thing with our face from time to time ourselves. So part of our Magic Word series today is going to address this, because the truth of the matter is that most people are good at communicating their needs and desires with people. However, that doesn't mean that they're doing it in a healthy way, in a way that brings life and joy into relationships. If you're not communicating your needs and desires proactively with your words, then chances are that you are communicating those very things with the people that you love and that you work with and that you're interacting with in ways that are not healthy or helpful. When we aren't using our words, but we're only using body language, then we are adding confusion, we're adding distrust, we're creating separation between us and the people around us. We're making it so that we're not safe people for others to be around. The solution to this is actually really easy. However, it takes courage because it requires vulnerability. So the solution is to learn how to use the words I need and I want. Now, there is a difference between a need and a want. You know, if you're a parent, you've probably taught your kids this. When they say they need to have, the latest video game or whatever it may be that your kids need, you understand that that's not actually something that they need, but it's something that they want. However, they do need to have other things provided for them so that they aren't going hungry, so that they're able to be clothed, and especially in Minnesota, in the cold months, they need warm clothes to keep them warm, and so on and so forth. There is a difference between a need and a want, and it is okay for you to have both. Now, in a relationship, a need is something that is necessary for your well-being. So, for example, it is okay for you to have a need for someone to treat you with respect. Now, being treated with respect is going to vary in your mind as to what it looks like, and it'll look differently in other people's minds. It's not something that is super clear or that brings the same imagery to every person. So this is where communication is essential. So, for example, it is okay for you to say to your spouse or to your friend or even to your boss, I need for you not to yell when we're having an argument. I need for you not to call me names. I need for you to tell me if you're going to be late. I need for you, whatever these things are that you need for your own well-being. Now, this is the trick about it, though, is that you can't actually control someone else's behavior. You can tell them what you need, and you can hope that they are able and mature enough and that it's possible and they're willing to help fulfill that need on their end, but you can't control their behavior. So what you can do, though, is you can draw boundaries around your behavior depending on how they act. So you say, I need for you to speak to me calmly, or else I can't continue this conversation with you. And then if they're unable to do so, then you calmly end the conversation from your end, letting them know that as soon as they're able to stay within the boundaries that you set, that then you will be happy to continue the conversation. This is just one example. That is an example of a need. A want is a different thing. It's okay to tell your spouse, I need you to tell me if you're going to be late, if this is a consistent problem, or else just know that the kids and I are going to eat if you're not home by this time. This is you, again, telling your spouse what you need for your night to go well, and you will communicate it respectfully to them. And then you're drawing your boundary, and you are not trying to control their behavior, but then you're going on without anger or malice in your heart towards them, and you're moving on yourself in a healthy way. Now, that is different from a want. A want might be, I want you to be able to come home at night so we can eat dinner at 5:30. So this might not be possible for your spouse. Maybe they just can't leave work in time to get there. Maybe there's traffic. Maybe they have meetings. Maybe there's some reason why your want isn't possible for them to fulfill. So again, this is different than a need. A want, though, is the thing that very often we find ourselves reluctant to express. So we say what we want, and this requires honesty, it requires vulnerability, it's scary. However, the other thing that it requires flexibility. When you're communicating a want to somebody else, obviously you want them to be able to fulfill it, but what you can't do is you can't put internal demands upon that want. You can't, in other words, say, I want you to be home at 5:30 every day, and if that's not possible, internally have that be rejection. So you're interpreting their inability to fulfill your want as rejection when maybe that's not it at all. This requires conversation so that you can try to find a compromise. Now, the thing about communicating your wants is that often when you do it, it feels almost like a test. Like, I am gathering up the courage to tell you what I want. And so if there is any response less than 100% yes on your end, I'm going to feel crushed. It's going to be a confirmation to me that you don't love me enough, or you don't like me, or this friendship isn't as important to you, or whatever the case may be. You have got to remove that from the equation, because it isn't actually true. People can love you more than they can put into words, and that love is genuine and true, but they can't always give you everything you want. Now, another mistake that we often make in terms of communicating our wants is that we have this weird notion that if somebody loves us enough that they're going to understand what we want without us having to communicate it. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't even know what I want. So I don't know how in the world I expect Jamie or my parents or my kids or my friends or whoever it might be to know what I want when sometimes I don't even understand myself. And yet we put this kind of pressure on people. It doesn't mean they don't love you if they don't know what you want. In fact, most of the time, the people that you are in close relationship with, whether it's a romantic one or it's a friendship or it's another family relationship, most of the time those people are going to want to give you whatever it is that you want because they care about you and they love you. And so often we end up without what we want, and we carry around this internal disappointment, but we have never even given anyone the opportunity to meet that desire. So it's important to put our wants into words, to recognize that the need to do so is actually just a hallmark of a mature relationship. It's not a lack on someone else's end of not being able to see what you need or what you want. Mature relationships communicate. They communicate vulnerably. They communicate without strings. In other words, you're not trying to manipulate someone. You know, it's okay if you communicate a want and someone is unable to fulfill it, to be disappointed, but it isn't okay to punish them for it. So sometimes when you communicate a want, the conversation isn't over. Sometimes it's just begun, and it's going to require more conversation. Maybe they can't do this thing that you want, but why is it that you want this? Is there something else that's possible? So keep your communication channels open. It's necessary for a healthy, happy home life and healthy, happy relationships. And the truth of the matter is, it is no fun holding all of that in. And you don't hold it in anyway. You might think you do, but you are communicating in 1,000 different ways your displeasure or the rejection you're feeling or your frustration or your loneliness or whatever it may be. It's coming out. It's just not coming out with clarity, and there's no solution because you're not helping someone to understand what it is that you need or what you want. So use those words. It might be hard at first, but the more you do it, the more you'll discover that the people around you truly are there for you. They're in your life for a reason. They love you. They're safe. They want to journey with you. Maybe when you first start communicating, it's going to be awkward and difficult. Maybe the first times it's not going to go well. Don't be discouraged. Instead, be honest, stay vulnerable, stay open, allow yourself the luxury of having a relationship with someone where they actually know you, where you are honest and authentic and you are seen, and where you can actually meet each other's needs as much as possible and wants as much as possible because you genuinely love and care for one another. I want, I need. It might feel awkward at first, but as you put these into practice, I promise that you are going to see life and you're going to see an increased intimacy and trust in the people around you. Now, my ending note is this. If you have people in your life that aren't safe, that's an entirely different situation and circumstance. And I'm so sorry for that because I know that that is the reality. However, I don't believe that that is the majority of relationships. In fact, I know that it isn't. Instead, most of us are in relationships with people who are imperfect, but who genuinely love and care and are willing to grow because we all want the future to be one where we're connected in heart, where we know each other and love each other, and where our future is brighter and better and more connected than our past.